Welcome back to CyHawk Talk here on a Wednesday. We're trying this again because your boy forgot to hit the record button the first time. But it's all
I
right. I
wouldn't have
remember
told the people. I wouldn't have told the people. You told on yourself, Peter.
Hey, it's all right. We'll get the bag ready to go for Sunday. I'll throw it on and we'll have a good time. But we're talking a little bit about Iowa State rematching Arizona State in the regular season. Obviously, that was the 2024 Big 12 championship matchup. But also, before we get to the Clones and the Sun Devils, I just want to give a quick promo for what I've got coming out this week. QCtimes.com. Check it out. A lot of good stuff from the Iowa coordinators, Phil Parker, LeVar Woods, and Tim Lester during the Iowa bye week. And then also women's basketball season getting underway tomorrow night. The Iowa women host Ashland in a preseason exhibition. Ashland was just picked sixth in the Division Two preseason top 25, so that's going to be a pretty good Division Two team coming in. So maybe a good chance to see what the Hawkeyes can do. I believe Missouri Western is also a good Division Two program, and the Hawkeyes kind of put the boots to them last year. So we'll see, but it'll be exciting to see the new look Hawkeyes in year two under Jan Jensen, and then to wrap things up before we get to Ben. Tim Lester gave a really insightful response to the last question of the press conference yesterday, in which he kind of went behind the curtain on his opening game script. A lot of discussion last week. One thing that we discussed on the show was, Iowa's not scoring on these opening drives. They always elect to receive, but they're not finding the end zone. And according to Lester, there's a little bit more to an opening drive than scoring a touchdown. Obviously, you want to get in the end zone on every drive, and obviously that's the main goal of that opening drive is to get off on the right foot, score a touchdown. He said it's always great to get a touchdown on that opening drive, but there's more to it than simply getting in the end zone. You can check out the story I wrote on that or the clip. I'll play it during the break here on the show. It's also available on my Twitter if you just can't wait the 10-15 minutes of Ben blathering to get to that break. But it's just really interesting. And he kind of went behind the curtain even on the Minnesota game and what the script was for that one. And the message they were trying to send with the first play and then the second play that they ran. So it was really cool. Really awesome response from Tim Lester. But, Ben, that's enough of my rambling for the second time. You've heard it now for the second time. Which one was better? The first one, the unrecorded one, or the recorded one?
I liked this one better, Ethan. And heck, I might shut myself up because I can't wait to hear what Tim Lester has to say. I've always been fascinated by how people script opening drives and what goes into that. So I can't wait to check that out on the QuadCityTimes.com. But this week I've been, going back and rewatching the 2024 Big 12 championship game. And the thought I've had is, man, some of this looks awful familiar. In at least this first quarter, Iowa State's defense got hurt on the big plays. The injuries were such a storyline last year, and the defense gave up some big play touchdowns, some coverage busts. Man, we have seen that these last few games as Iowa State is on a little bit of a losing streak. But maybe as the Cyclones are now eliminated from Arlington this year, a rematch against Arizona State, a team that they can get a little bit of bad blood with, get a little bit of revenge against, might just be what they need to get a win and get their season back on track.
Now, one player that I came away from watching the Big 12 championship last year, I came away impressed with was obviously Cam Scatabo and what he was able to do. Hopefully, he gets back on the field next year for the Giants. He's been awesome to watch in the NFL, but I think I came away more impressed with the quarterback Sam Leavitt for the Sun Devils. I was really impressed. I didn't realize he was as good of a dual threat quarterback as he was, and I believe he was a Michigan State transfer, so I was kind of somewhat aware of him from following the Big Ten while I was at Nebraska as a student there. So I was really surprised to see that. But sounds like he might not be available this week. What do you have on the quarterback situation for the Sun Devils?
Yeah, no Sam Leavitt for Saturday. Cyclone fans won't get a chance to see him again. And he is incredible to watch. He's one of the most elusive quarterbacks I've seen in terms of his shiftiness, getting out of the pocket. It's incredible to watch him run. Certainly a dual threat guy that the Cyclones, remember, hurt them big time. So no Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson, the other Arizona State dynamic player who could be perhaps the first wide receiver off the board in the NFL drafts this season, is also maybe a little bit of iffy for this game on Saturday. So the Cyclones are going to have a chance to, not face some of these dynamic playmakers, which is a little bit of a bummer for sure. But, in terms of what the Cyclones need to get a win, I think John Hickok's probably a little bit happy.
Don't tell me it's Jeff Sims at quarterback for Arizona State.
Ethan, it's Jeff Sims at quarterback for
Yikes!
Arizona
Yikes!
State. Yeah,
I do not. I do not pity
he's
my Arizona State brethren. That was an unfortunate season of Husker football to watch.
Yeah, Sims came in relief last game, and the Sun Devils lost that one. They lost the other game. Sam Leavitt missed as Sims was defeated in that Utah matchup, you remember. So Jeff Sims, he's an experienced quarterback, but experienced with a little bit of losing this season.
And then a little bit more on the injury front. Looks like that Iowa, they got Kyle Conradi back already, but it looks like the kicking game is going to continue getting healthier and healthier. Obviously, down to their number three kicker when the losing streak started. What's the latest on the health of the kickers at Iowa State?
We saw how important it was to get Kyle Conradi back last week. He goes perfect from field goals, extra points, takes so much pressure off of this Iowa State offense to go for it on third and long and fourth and medium and all of those situations. And I think the Cyclones are going to get a little bit more of an advantage in the kicking game with Jace Gilbert scheduled to probably come back for this Saturday's matchup. Gilbert is the second string place kicker, but he handles Iowa State's kickoff duties, which is an area that has really been hurting Iowa State in recent weeks. As you know, your freshman walk-on from the Quad City area, Chase Smith, has done a serviceable job, but he just can't get it as far down the field as Jace Gilbert can. I think we're going to finally see some touchbacks on Saturday, which is going to be big because Iowa State, they've been doing everything they can. I asked Matt Campbell if there were any tackling issues or if it was purely, more of a hey, if you can only get that ball to the 10-yard line, you're going to get hurt in that department. And Campbell said by no means were there any tackling issues. It's just a matter of getting the ball down there in all respect to what the Cyclones have had there the last few weeks. So I'm certainly expecting to see a little bit of a boost in the special teams. That's been those hidden yardage that have hurt Iowa State as the offense has moved the ball. Some of these hidden yards have really hurt the Cyclones in some of these close Big 12 losses.
As you were kind of talking about the impact that those injuries have had, I thought about it from an Iowa perspective. What if they lost their top two kickers? Well, I just did a story yesterday after talking to special teams coordinator LeVar Woods at the press conference, asking him about the future at kicker and returner for the Hawkeyes because Drew Stevens and Caden Weegan both exhaust their eligibility this year. And the Hawkeyes only have one other kicker on the roster behind Drew Stevens. That's Caden Burr, another Quad Cities area alum, went to Bettendorf. And so I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, man, they would be to the offensive lineman kicker by the second injury. They wouldn't even have the third option to go to in that event. So it's pretty incredible how injuries have seemed to really focus in on specific position groups for the Cyclones the last 2 years. And, all things considered, the success they've been able to have despite those injuries.
Yeah, we got to have a fun conversation with Kyle Conradi this week about what it's like to welcome in a 6'8", 260-pound offensive lineman into the specialist workouts and into the specialist practices. Carson Rhodes has been the guy that's been the emergency kicker. And Conradi had some fun telling us, what is it like to work with a guy that big? And he said, well, it is definitely different. He just moves differently than a smaller, traditional looking specialist. But he said Carson Rhodes improved a lot and they've had a lot of fun getting to work with each other. Conradi kind of coached him up on his stride and, all of those things that you need to make a successful kick. So it is interesting when you get a guy that big at a kicker position.
And then fill me in. I'm not, I don't indulge in the burner situation at all. I can't say I enjoy those accounts, but I certainly like to use them to get a pulse on things. What's the burner situation between Iowa State and Arizona State? Is there a lot of bad blood between the fan bases based on what happened last year, or has Arizona State just not been in the Big 12 long enough for Iowa State to have any, conference hatred for them?
I haven't seen any bad blood. I think it's just because the burners are kind of dejected. Arizona State's coming into this game losing 2 out of 3. The Sun Devils' Big 12 championship hopes, I guess, are mathematically alive, but not something I don't think they feel great about right now without their star quarterback and without their star receiver. And Iowa State is mathematically, essentially eliminated from the Big 12 championship. Rocco Becht mentioned it as something, hey, you got to speak the truth to the team. So, Ethan, I think a lot of the luster, a lot of the juice kind of got zapped from this matchup with the way both of these teams have kind of scuffled into this November game that we thought would be huge when it was on the schedule.
Officer Hutchins with his report on the wellness check for Arizona State and Iowa State burner accounts. We'll be back with his Sunday's headlines today, right after this message from Coach Lester on opening game scripts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It was definitely scripted. That's the easy answer. Normally, I've had as low as 11 as up to 18. Really depends how many slots I have left on my call sheet. I think last week it was like 15, 16. Now those are first and second down calls, right? And everyone's different depending on what we're trying to see. There's certain times I want to see if they have an unbalanced check. I got to get that done in the first 10. I want to see, you know, in 11 or 12 in certain formations, how they're going to play us. Definitely want to move the pocket as fast as possible. Want to get them the D line, start to get them tired as fast as I can. Try to get them sideline to sideline. So there's a lot of different things that go into that. And but last week I just thought our guys did a great job of executing them. Really, the first play. We ran that play for a reason. We wanted to see what the will linebacker did. We wanted to send a message to them that if they tried to fit this certain run play that way, you couldn't, And Mark pulled it. They covered him, and Mark ran for 8 yards, which we knew if they covered it well, he'd be free to go get some yards. The weed screen was obviously we've been running that play fairly well. It gets harder and harder to hide him, but he's starting to become better wide receiver, which is fun, But we ran that same play last week, and we ran the bubble to him. And so this time we brought him back underneath. The lineman did an unbelievable job of getting downfield. But I come off that script on third down in the red zone. So I think of that first 15 on that first drive, we probably used, I don't even know, you guys probably know how many plays it was. It goes fast for me up there. Probably we used 6 of them, 6 or 7. And then we go to third down. I go to third down calls. We hit the 25-yard line. I'm in a different box, and I go back to it. And, there's a game last year. It was Minnesota last year. I think I had like 20 openers, and I didn't even get at halftime. I wasn't done with them because you end up in the red zone and you're not even on the openers. It's just open field, first 10, first 15, whatever it is. So nothing better than scoring on the first drive. The guys did a good job. That third down was huge. I wish we would have hit the play pass, because we felt pretty solid about that thing. We just didn't execute it well enough. But I think our guys are going to get better and better. Last year we deferred a lot. I know Coach likes to take the ball, and it's exciting for us because especially when you're playing a team that they're going to defer. I mean, there's like a 95% chance we're taking the ball. Like, we know it going in. And I think our guys are, excited about it, and we just got to come out and be focused right away and come off the ball, and I think we did a really good job of it last week.
Welcome back to CyHawk Talk here on a Wednesday, talking Sundays headlines today with Ben Hutchins. Ben, take us away. Let us know what's going to happen this weekend when Iowa State takes on Arizona State.
I think Iowa State's going to win this game, and they're favored in Vegas. I think this is a get-right game for the Cyclones. I'll give you another burner update. Jack Trice Mafia, a great follow on Cyclone Twitter. He tweeted something out. This could be the 6th coldest game that Arizona State's football program has ever played. So I wonder if that maybe factors in to this matchup a little bit. It's going to get down, I think, into the 40s by the time Iowa State and Arizona State. I know, not cold at all, right, for Iowa people. But for those, tanned, timpy, sandal-wearing Arizona State kids, yeah, it's going to be a little bit chilly. So I think Iowa State does get this game won with some of these injuries for the Sun Devils. So that's why my first headline is let it go. Let it go. Iowa State can finally let go of that loss in the Big 12 championship. I know this one probably won't fill the void what that game last year would have meant in terms of getting into the college football playoff and that moment. But maybe they'll do a little bit to let some of those feelings go. And I think Iowa State's going to be as free as a cardinal, as free as a bird this week. Rocco Becht, after he admitted, hey, the Big 12 championship is pretty much off the table, he said, I think that might be a little bit of a good thing. I think it could free us up. Matt Campbell said post-game that some of Iowa State's players have been pressing. They've been trying too hard almost in some of these red zone situations where the Cyclones haven't been as good. And maybe that's why the ball is not bouncing their way. So Rocco Becht said they could be playing a little bit more freely on Saturday with less pressure. And maybe that's what gets Iowa State on the right side of one of these close games. And bitter revenge. It is a measure of revenge if you beat Arizona State, but it's not quite the sweet revenge that you would have liked in terms of what this game maybe could have meant at the start of the season, beating Arizona State on your way to another Big 12 championship game. I think Iowa State gets some revenge, but it's not going to be as sweet as what we hoped it might be for this program.
Those were some exceptional headlines. So you're gonna have to explain something about that second one though. Cardinal. Last I checked, Iowa State's colors are black and white, right?
Ah, you've been reading the Quad City Times. I'll turn you on to that good stuff. I wrote a big story about Iowa State's black and white uniforms. Ethan, maybe you can find a way to pull up the graphic I made where it shows Iowa State has worn all black and all white 17 times, I think, in the Matt Campbell era. And those two colors have been seen over 50% of the time since 2016, since Matt Campbell took over. Red is the other primary color that you'll see, and only 0.3% of the time has Iowa State worn gold and yellow. The best quote I got maybe in the whole story was, "Hey, if you can either have yellow or you can either have Coach Matt Campbell." So Matt Campbell's not a fan of the yellow and the gold. Certainly the uniforms are a hot topic. I got a lot of responses. Thank you for all the fans who chimed in. It seems like you could get 10 people in a room and you'd get 10 different opinions on what Iowa State's uniform should be. What do you think of them, Ethan?
I think that Iowa State has exceptional uniforms, and I think that they've used their color scheme really well in the ones that have the cardinal and gold on them. And I always am a sucker for a good blackout uniform. Hate the ones that my Huskers are wearing this weekend against USC. They stink, but I think that the Iowa State blackout uniforms look really good. So I think that they're much improved off the Brock Purdy era uniforms, which I thought were some of the ugliest in college football. So that's my opinion on Iowa State uniforms. If you want my opinion on Ben's story, I think it's fantastic. I think Ben, obviously I think he's the second best writer at the time. So all of the stuff he's putting out is really good. But this is a story you don't want to miss. And I'm not just saying that because I also work for the Quad City Times. I do think this was an exceptionally well reported story and one that Coach Campbell invited someone to write when he made that comment in Ireland earlier this year, where he came back into the press conference and said, "Hey, you want to know? You guys want to talk about the color of our uniforms?" So I was like, "Okay, well now someone's got to write the story." So I'm really thankful that Ben stepped up and did that. That's been up on the Quad City Times website since Saturday, I believe.
We ran it Monday morning. Iowa State kind of surprised everybody with the black uniforms, right? I mean, they didn't make an announcement, and then on Saturday they kind of put out some graphics that hinted at that. Ethan, some psychology is, I actually think Iowa State turned to these all black uniforms as almost a last resort, as a, hey, our back is against the wall, we need a win, we're going to bring out the all black uniforms. There is definitely a psychological element to that. 9 of the 10 players that talked to at Media Day said it's their favorite kind of jersey to wear. Jeremiah Cooper gave me one of my favorite quotes. He said, "When I put on those all black uniforms, I feel like a villain. I just want to go out there and hit somebody." So I do think these uniforms were turned to as, maybe some sort of element to kind of snap Iowa State back into it. And it ultimately wasn't enough. But these uniforms, it's more than just a color. And Matt Campbell told us that in Ireland. He said, "Hey, it is just a color," but I wrote, his words said one thing and his actions say another, as how much Iowa State has embraced these all black uniforms under Matt Campbell. So I appreciate you reading the story and hyping it up, man. It was a lot of fun to write.
And then before I make you give away the whole story here on the podcast for free, I'll go ahead and rewind to last Wednesday. I mentioned a theory that another reporter had as to why Iowa always takes the opening kick, talking about how Kirk Ferentz likes to control the controllables, and that's something he can virtually guarantee because most teams are going to defer, and then you're going to take the ball to start the game. So going into a game, you basically have a 99.9% chance that you're going to open with the ball if your decision is to receive. I didn't want to name that reporter. Didn't want to throw him under the bus if they didn't want their name attached to that. Got permission from him. It was Elliot Clough with 24/7 Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. That was his original idea. And quite frankly, if you go back and watch the entire Tim Lester press conference and that response he gave about opening play scripts, which I played for you early on the show, I feel like he kind of sort of confirmed that was the correct reason why, because he said, going into a game, we have a 95% chance of knowing we're going to have the ball if we if that's our plan. So I do think that was semi-confirmed by Tim Lester, even though he didn't come right out and say, that's why we take the ball. But that'll do it for the show. Be sure to check out the QuadCityTimes.com for all our coverage of Iowa State, men's basketball, women's basketball getting going here, and the Hawkeyes. A lot of fun. Ben, thanks for joining me this afternoon, even though you had your other podcast to record as well. Thanks for watching.
Hey, yeah, you know where my priorities are. CyHawk Talk with Ethan Petrick. I can't give anybody a hard time like I can give you.